peut-être souffrir. Mais nous, de notre côté, j'ai bien dit dans ma réponse que nous sommes en train d'évaluer la situation au jour le jour pour voir ce qui se passe. L'important pour nous, ce n'est pas qu'il y ait une augmentation des non-performing loans. Nous allons travailler pour venir avec des mesures appropriées si besoin est. Merci.
Mention and likely increase around 2.5 billion rupees in interest repayment of public debt. Public debt will cost 2.5 billion more. Isn't the Honourable Minister of Finance afraid that this increased interest rate may result in a further downgrading by Moody's, as it will affect the capability of government to repay the public debt?
Monsieur le Président, je remercie l'honorablement pour cette question. J'ai bien précisé, c'est sur les 2,5 milliards de roupies d'intérêts qu'on paye qu'il y aura une hausse. Ce n'est pas une hausse de 2,5 milliards, il y aura une hausse peut-être de 200 millions, il faut calculer. Mais nous, de notre côté, ce qu'on est en train de voir, c'est comment baisser les intérêts. Nous avons des dettes que nous avons contractées depuis longtemps et qui nous coûtent très très cher. Je parle d'ici des taux allant jusqu'à 10%. Donc nous sommes en train de voir comment rééchelonner ces dettes pour qu'on arrive à un moment donné à baisser les services de la dette. Comment on va faire ça? C'est simplement trouver des nouveaux emprunts, de prendre des nouveaux emprunts à des taux inférieurs et rembourser les anciens qui nous coûtaient plus cher. Mais pour cela, il nous faut vraiment respecter les contrats parce que dans certains cas, on ne peut pas rembourser en amont, en avance, donc on est en train de voir là-dessus. Pour revenir sur les critères concernant Moody's, nous sommes en train de travailler dessus. Non, l'augmentation de ces intérêts ne va pas avoir une répercussion énorme sur le déficit. De toute façon, encore une fois, nous sommes en train de suivre cette situation. Vous savez, avec ce qui se passe au niveau mondial, après la grande crise de 2020, là, actuellement, nous sommes en train de regarder réellement avec la normalisation de l'économie, le taux réel étant toujours négatif, nous devons poursuivre l'accélération de la reprise économique. C'est le seul moyen pour nous de baisser notre dette et de baisser aussi les déficits. Merci.
Sufficient to canvass. Next question.
B1102, please.
Mr. Speaker, sir, in reply to part A of the question, as at date, there are 6,572 identified persons living with HIV in Mauritius and 148 in Rodrigues. Out of the 6,572 persons living with HIV, 5,162 have been followed up at the 8 daycare centers for the immunosuppressed and at 8 prison settings. There is also one HIV clinic at Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Rodrigues. The protocol applicable is the Protocole national de prise en charge des personnes vivant avec le VIH à Maurice, which dates back to April 2018. This protocol has just been reviewed on 13th October 2022 to include better tolerated antiretroviral treatment, including for pediatric cases and earlier infant diagnosis of newborns to HIV-positive mothers, among others. In regard to part 2 of the question, there are 9 medical doctors currently posted at the different daycare centers of the AIDS unit who followed a training program in HIV and AIDS. Moreover, the 14 specialized nurses and 11 nursing officers posted at the centers have received on-the-job training, and 3 of the specialized nurses have a diploma in HIV and AIDS, and 3 of the nursing officers possess a diploma in HIV and family education. Mr. Speaker, sir, in reply to part B of the question, as stated earlier in my reply, my ministry has a policy regarding la prise en charge of HIV-positive persons. A holistic, person-centered and rights-based approach is adopted to ensure universal health coverage. Integrated HIV services is already being implemented, with the hepatitis C treatment being provided at the HIV clinics. Same will apply for treatment for sexually transmitted infections and addictions if necessary. HIV treatment medications to prevent and treat HIV-related opportunistic infections, diagnostic and support services are free of user cost. Public transportation fees are reimbursed to those on appointment at the HIV clinics. Since August 2017, the people who are tested positive for HIV are initiated on treatment irrespective of their immunodeficiency, in line with the WHO guidelines. All pregnant women living with HIV attending the public and private health institutions have access to all services provided as per the Prevention of Mother-to-Child Transmission Program. Infant formula milk is provided for babies born to HIV-positive mothers up to the age of 2. Psychological support being provided through the services of a dedicated psychologist. A collaborative work is carried out during clinical sessions with support of NGOs, peer educators, and social workers present at the AIDS unit. The peer educators, through exchange of information and their own experience in life, alleviate patients' apprehension with regard to HIV. The peer educators also facilitate access to social aids and other facilities provided by the ministry. The HIV doctors and nursing officers of the AIDS unit carry out treatment literacy to reinforce patients' understanding of the importance as well as the impact of regular intake of HIV medications to ensure better health outcomes and quality of life.
Monsieur le Président. Merci, Monsieur le Président, et merci à l'honorable ministre pour sa réponse. Malgré le protocole qui est appliqué et à la formation du personnel médical, je dirais que la stigmatisation des personnes vivant avec le VIH-Sida est toujours d'actualité. D'ailleurs, il y en a beaucoup qui sont mécontents de la façon qu'ils sont reçus dans les hôpitaux où le personnel médical devrait adopter une approche, une attitude beaucoup plus humaine vis-à-vis de ces personnes. L'honorable ministre ne pense-t-il pas qu'il serait bon qu'il fasse appel à ces officiers, au personnel médical qui sont souvent en contact avec les personnes vivant avec le VIH pour qu'ils aient une attitude beaucoup plus humaine?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. So far, what we've been able to do is to have a WHO expert who has come to Mauritius, visited the different sites, and taken also this into account, that is the stigmatization of the HIV patients. So we'll be expecting a new action plan on HIV to come soon, and with that also to amend the HIV and AIDS Act dated 2006. And hopefully the Act and the new action plan will be able to cater especially for the stigmatization, even in the outside the hospital premises and inside and outside the hospital premises.
La PrEP est un des médicaments qui est utilisé pour contrôler justement la propagation du sida. Le ministre a récemment indiqué que 200 personnes seulement en font usage. Eu égard les chiffres qu'il vient de communiquer à la Chambre, dans sa réponse, peut-il nous dire s'il compte revoir toute la politique de communication de son ministère par rapport à l'utilisation de la PrEP de façon à ce que ce médicament soit plus accessible?
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, sir, honorable member, I don't know whether you have taken note that recently, some 6-7 weeks back, we have launched again a campaign on PrEP. And with this campaign on PrEP, to get the PrEP treatment to be available not only in these AIDS and HIV units, but across the board in all the health institutions. Even for the testing also, we have democratize the testing policy, because you've got to make the testing also available. It's not only that you have to turn up in an AIDS unit, in an AIDS setting to be tested. You can get it tested in a community health office, in centers, or all that. And as well as the PrEP has been included into that. So what we are expecting that in the coming month to have people understand why PrEP is important and how this can help us to, combat HIV/AIDS in the near future.
The Speaker, sir, can the Honourable Minister advise what is the policy in regard to HIV screening?
So it's a mixed testing services used for HIV screening purposes. It is carried out under consent, confidentiality and counseling, pre and post test as per HIV and AIDS Act. So you've got to ensure that confidentiality aspect. Now, what I have with me, the minors who are sexually active can undergo HIV testing without his legal administrator or guardian, as provided in the HIV and AIDS Act 2006. All individuals who are sexually active or have risky behaviors are encouraged to screen for HIV. So the policy is to get access to testing as far as possible. And recently, we introduced the testing even for private pharmacies to be able to sell the testing kits. So with this, people can get access to testing, and obviously if they are tested positive, we've got all the confidentiality issues to maintain so that they get their treatment as per the
Monsieur le Président, par rapport aux aides et soutiens qui sont alloués aux personnes vivant avec le VIH et SIDA, le ministre peut-il nous dire comment et à quel niveau interviennent les ONG qui sont engagées dans la lutte contre cette maladie?
Mr. Speaker, sir, for the NGOs are engaged basically, especially for the psychosocial support. So the Ministry of Health provide the screening services, the medication, the testing, the follow. So the medical side being provided by the Ministry of Health, and the NGOs, they do provide the psychosocial aspect of anyone suffering from HIV. Now, the collaboration of the NGOs is also important, especially for those who are lost to follow-up. So you've got patients who start their treatment and eventually we lose these patients. So the NGOs are engaged also to recuperate those who lost their follow-ups in the hospitals.
Next question.
B/1102.
Monsieur le Président, je remercie l'honorable membre pour sa question. Comme l'a souligné notre honorable Premier ministre dans son discours lors de la conférence internationale sur l'économie numérique et la banque digitale qui s'est tenue récemment à Maurice, le développement de la coopération avec les institutions internationales a toujours été une priorité dans l'agenda de ce gouvernement. L'honorable Premier ministre a ainsi réitéré le vif intérêt de Maurice à devenir membre de l'OCDE et son engagement à adhérer aux standards et normes internationaux les plus élevés. À cet égard, comme l'Assemblée le sait peut-être, Maurice a mis en œuvre diverses réformes pour se conformer aux normes internationales de l'OCDE et ainsi partie prenante de plusieurs de ces instruments et organes. Maurice suit de près les travaux de l'OCDE dans divers domaines tels que la fiscalité, l'investissement, les services financiers, la corruption, entre autres. En termes de fiscalité internationale, Maurice est déjà signataire des conventions, instruments et accords suivants de l'OCDE, la Convention on Mutual Administrative Assistance in Tax Matters, le Multilateral Competent Authority Agreement on Exchange of Financial Account Information under the Common Reporting Standards of the OECD, le Multilateral Competent Authority Agreement on the Exchange of Country-by-Country Reports, la Multilateral Convention to Implement Tax Treaty-Related Measures, to prevent base erosion and profit shifting. En 2016, Maurice a rejoint l'Inclusive Framework qui réunit tous les pays et juridictions engagés au sein du Comité des affaires fiscales et de tous ses organes subsidiaires. Afin d'en suivre les derniers développements, Maurice a adhéré à la déclaration de l'OCDE sur une solution à 2 piliers pour relever les défis fiscaux découlant de la numérisation de l'économie en octobre 2021, qui définit les règles d'adoption d'un impôt minimum mondial. Maurice participe également activement au forum de l'OCDE sur les pratiques fiscales dommageables et au forum mondial sur la transparence et l'échange de renseignements à des fins fiscales. Monsieur le Président, en vue d'améliorer la transparence de nos régimes d'investissement et de promouvoir davantage Maurice en tant que centre d'investissement sûr et compétitif, nous avons officiellement soumis une demande à l'OCDE pour adhérer à la déclaration de l'OCDE sur l'investissement international et les entreprises multinationales. Cette demande ayant été acceptée par l'OCDE a été acceptée par l'OCDE le mois dernier. Cela permettra à Maurice de participer aux travaux du comité de l'investissement de l'OCDE, de rejoindre le réseau d'investissement de l'OCDE et à terme de devenir le premier pays d'Afrique subsaharienne à adhérer à la déclaration. Afin de renforcer davantage nos efforts de lutte contre la corruption d'agents publics étrangers dans les transactions commerciales internationales, Maurice a l'intention de signer la convention de l'OCDE sur la lutte contre la corruption d'agents publics étrangers dans les transactions commerciales internationales et fera une demande pour devenir un membre à part entière du groupe de travail de l'OCDE sur la corruption dans les transactions commerciales internationales. Ce sera un signal fort à l'attention de la communauté internationale, démontrant une fois encore l'engagement de Maurice à combattre la corruption et à fournir un environnement commercial sûr pour nos investisseurs. En outre, l'OCDE est un temple du savoir. Cette institution dispose de ressources et d'expertise qui peuvent aider Maurice à poursuivre sa transformation économique et sociale. Ainsi, notre pays, en tant que membre du Centre de développement de l'OCDE, a pu et pourra profiter de diverses opportunités de renforcement des capacités. Une assistance continue est ainsi fournie à la MRA en ce qui concerne l'administration fiscale. Le Regional Center of Excellence est un autre exemple des bénéfices de cette coopération. Je rappelle qu'en mars 2019, le Centre régional d'excellence, en partenariat avec l'OCDE, a été inauguré à Maurice avec pour objectif de fournir des programmes de renforcement des capacités, de mener des recherches sur des domaines d'actualité et de trouver des conseils sur les normes minimales qui doivent être introduites au niveau régional. Monsieur le Président, de nombreux pays non membres de l'OCDE, dans le but de bénéficier de son expertise et de ses conseils en matière de formulation de politique publique, ont exprimé leur intérêt pour les travaux de l'OCDE. Actuellement, l'OCDE est engagée dans les discussions avec 6 pays, à savoir l'Argentine, le Brésil, la Bulgarie, la Croatie et le Pérou, en vue de leur adhésion. Je me saisis de cette question pour rappeler que devenir membre de l'OCDE n'est pas une tâche aisée et qu'elle implique un processus d'examen rigoureux comme suit. Le Conseil de l'OCDE, qui comprend tous les membres de l'organisation, décide de l'ouverture des discussions d'adhésion après réception d'une demande écrite d'un pays candidat à l'adhésion. Une feuille de route pour l'adhésion est alors adoptée par le Conseil qui définit les termes, les conditions et le processus d'adhésion conformément à son cadre pour l'examen des pays candidats. La feuille de route d'adhésion énumère les examens techniques que les comités de l'OCDE doivent entreprendre dans divers domaines d'action afin d'évaluer la volonté et la capacité du pays candidat à mettre en œuvre les instruments juridiques pertinents de l'OCDE, ainsi que ses politiques et pratiques par rapport aux meilleures politiques et pratiques de l'OCDE dans le domaine d'action correspondant. Il en résulte une série de recommandations pour aligner davantage le pays candidat sur les normes et les meilleures pratiques de l'OCDE. Une fois le processus technique achevé, le Conseil de l'OCDE décide d'inviter ou non le pays candidat à devenir membre. Un accord d'adhésion est signé et le pays candidat prend les mesures nationales nécessaires et dépose un instrument d'adhésion à la Convention de l'OCDE auprès du dépositaire. À la date du dépôt, le pays devient officiellement membre de l'OCDE. À ce jour, beaucoup a été fait et beaucoup est fait en termes d'alignement de nos lois et règlements sur les meilleures pratiques de l'OCDE. Cela devrait peser positivement dans l'évaluation par l'OCDE de notre aptitude à devenir membre de l'OCDE un jour. Il est important de souligner que tous les instruments de l'OCDE ne sont pas juridiquement contraignants. Pour les instruments qui sont juridiquement contraignants, lorsque les divergences existent entre les politiques et les lois nationales des pays membres et les principes contraignants de l'OCDE, il existe des mécanismes de consultation auxquels les pays membres peuvent recourir pour sauvegarder leurs intérêts nationaux. Merci.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the Honourable Minister for his extensive statement. Can I ask him, what are the benefits that are going to accrue to Mauritius and whether there's been an in-depth study conducted, and if yes, will he circulate the study?
Monsieur le Président, au vu de ce qui se passe au niveau international depuis de longues années, Maurice, nous avons fait le choix d'adhérer aux normes internationales de l'OCDE, que ce soit pour notre secteur financier, que ce soit pour notre système fiscal et que ce soit pour notre système de développement social. Oui, cela apporte énormément de bénéfices à un pays qui se conforme à ces normes parce que, comme je le répète souvent, vaut mieux faire les transactions dans ce qui a les 99,99% de travaux ou d'échanges conformes aux lois que d'aller vers les 0,001% où on ne respecte pas les lois. Donc oui, ce sera bénéfique. Nous avons fait un travail, mais vous savez très bien que ce genre d'études empiriques va nous apporter une réponse claire et précise des avantages qu'on peut avoir, mais c'est sûr aussi que cela demande un travail régulier et robuste de notre côté pour respecter les normes. Et c'est ce qu'on est en train de faire.
Access to information is a right and not a privilege. That's why I asked you, Honourable Minister, whether there's been an in-depth study conducted, and if yes, whether the study will be circulated, make it available to one and all, especially to the operators.
Je pense savoir que l'honorable, Monsieur le Président, je pense savoir que l'honorable membre est en train de parler pour le secteur financier en particulier. Bien sûr, Monsieur l'honorable membre, nous avons eu presque tous les ans, en tout cas quand j'étais à la FSI, et je crois que ça continue actuellement, tous les ans vous avez des délégués de l'OCDE qui viennent à Maurice pour expliquer les bienfaits de respecter les normes et les standards. Et récemment, au vu de ce qui s'est passé pour l'inclusion de Maurice sur la liste de FATF, comme vous le savez, FATF est un organe qui est en dessous de l'OCDE, vaut mieux respecter toutes les normes parce que cela crée moins de problèmes pour le secteur financier que d'aller à l'encontre. Il y aura toujours, et là je dis bien, il y aura toujours quelques entreprises, quelques entrepreneurs qui seront contre cette idée d'aller dans, je rappelle bien, le bon sens. Mais nous, en tant que gouvernement responsable, nous devons regarder les 99, encore une fois, 99,99% d'entreprises qui veulent travailler avec les normes internationales pour améliorer leurs résultats. Donc, encore une fois, oui, vous êtes en train de me demander s'il y a une étude empirique pour démontrer les bienfaits de l'OCDE. Je vous le dis, non, il n'y a pas d'étude empirique, monsieur l'honorable député. Pourquoi il n'y a pas d'étude empirique? Parce que c'est le bon sens de respecter les normes et les standards internationaux.
subscribe to what our good friend has said, the Honorable Minister. I take it for granted that there will be no Anglioti, no Alvaro coming into our jurisdiction. No?
L'objectif, Monsieur le Président, permettez-moi de répondre à cette question. L'objectif, bien sûr, c'est tout le temps d'améliorer le système et d'améliorer l'environnement économique à Maurice. Merci.
Next question.
B1104.
Honorable Minister Kalichan.
Mr. Speaker, sir, as the trading arm of the government of Mauritius, one of the strategic objectives of the Straight Trading Corporation is to ensure a wide distribution of essential products in order to make it accessible to the entire population, especially to the most vulnerable groups. At present, the STC is commercializing soybean oil, milk powder, and other basic commodities such as basmati rice, red kidney beans, white kidney beans, chana dal, and lima beans under its brand name Smash. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to the criteria used for the selection of its distributors, I am informed that the STC ensures that the distributor meets the following criteria: has a valid wholesale trade license, has appropriate logistics for distribution, and has an established distribution network. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is to be highlighted that out of all these products being commercialized by STC, only soybean oil is being sold at a subsidized price. I am informed that the distributors of Smash soybean oil are therefore required to enter into an agreement with STC. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am tabling the consolidated list of the 103 distributors of essential commodities of Smash brand and the list of 20 registered distributors entrusted with the distribution of Smash soybean oil.
Merci, Monsieur le Ministre. There has been many complaints regarding the product not available through the island. I mean, in some regions, yes, they are available. In some supermarkets, they are not available. So will the Minister ensure the House now that there is a marketing plan and a distribution plan so that the Smash product is available around the island?
Mr. Speaker, sir, we are well aware of the problem, and I am confirming that there are distribution point of sale of Smash product, and they are across the island. Obviously, our products are being sold like petit pâté, so the risk of it being run out at the distribution points does exist.
So you said petit papier or what?
Petit pâté.
Oh, petit pâté. I wanted to confirm. So, Mr. Speaker, I just want to know about the price control mechanism. You mentioned that the oil is subsidized, but the rest of the product is free of price. So again, I've received complaints about the price mechanisms that many supermarkets and shops practice their own price. So does the ministry has a price control mechanism on the product under the brand of Smash?
Mr. Speaker, sir, this is not true. The price that has been fixed for the sale of soybean oil is at 75 rupees. So if there is any complaint regarding higher prices being practiced by any commerce, they should report it at my ministry.
The Honourable Minister mentioned himself that the product are being sold like
I said.
You said that you're selling like chipapi or chipati. So have you got enough stock for the month of November and December to serve the whole island?
Mr. Speaker, sir, unfortunately, we did not take over the market. We are putting on sale 600 liters of soybean oil regularly, 600,000 liters of soybean oil regularly, and there are other makes as well. Recently, the Morol company has also reduced its price, and I understand Reop, who is commercializing running oil, also are reviewing its prices downward.
Very specific. Your MD, Mr. Rajiv Sevan, mentioned that there's going to be a peak demand for oil in November and December due to the festive season. Has the STC made enough provision of stock for the period of November and December?
We will continue to supply regularly the market with the quantity that we have been supplying so far.
Next question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. B/1105, please.
Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to the number of drains projects which have been completed by the Municipal Council of Vakwa Phoenix since November 2021, I'm informed by the Council that it has completed 9 projects at a cost of 16,876,900 rupees. The status of other drain projects earmarked by the Municipal Council of Vakwa Phoenix is as follows. At construction stage 1, consultancy stage 2, tender stage 18, design stage 15, making a total of 36 projects. It's still in the process now, apart from this 9 which has been completed. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm tabling the list of completed drain projects and the list of 36 drain projects being implemented, as I've just mentioned above, by the Municipal Council. Moreover, I'm informed by the LDA that there are 71 other projects which are being implemented by the other agencies in the town of Vakwa Phoenix as follows. 65 drain projects by National Development Unit, 5 drain projects by the Road Development Authority, and 1 drain project by the Drain Infrastructure Company Limited.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, may I ask the Honourable Vice Prime Minister, is there any protocol in place with the Land Drainage Authority and the Municipal Council of Vakwa Phoenix with regard to the ongoing process of cleaning and maintaining of drains, but also as to the types of drains to be designed and constructed in the near future in the township of Vakwa Phoenix?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. I mean, there's definitely a cooperation, a collaboration between LDA and the whole municipal council. It's the LDA that gives a specification for the different type of drains, and these are applied by the different local authorities. So there's a good collaboration going on as far as drain construction and even for the cleaning as well.
Is the Honourable Vice Prime Minister aware that as at date, the Municipal Council of Vakwa Phoenix has not yet started the cleaning of drains, especially with regard to the heavy rainy season starting very soon and the cyclonic season is also starting? Can the Honourable Vice Prime Minister look into the matter?
I can assure the Honourable Members that I've already contacted all local authorities because we are going to get the rainy season coming in January or February. So to start cleaning of the drain, I mean, even a couple of months ago. So I'll make sure I've already given the instruction for the drain need to be clean in anticipation of the kind of flood, the raining weather coming. But I'll contact the local authorities, the Vakwa Phoenix local authorities, to make sure that the work is being done.
Next question.
B/1106.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to inform the House that the Central Electricity Board and Terragen Limited, ex-CTBV, had signed a power purchase agreement on the 24th of June 1998 in respect of a coal bagasse-fired steam power plant at Mapu. The installed capacity of the plant was 71.2 megawatt, and the minimum power guarantees under the power purchase agreement were 46 megawatt during the crop season, and 62 megawatt during the intercrop season. The power purchase agreement was extended by both parties on the same terms and conditions for a first additional term of 30 months, starting from 1st July 2020 to 31st December 2022, and a second additional term of 30 months starting on 1st January 2023 to 30th June 2025. On 4th of March 2022, Terra-Gen Limited had issued to the Central Electricity Board a notice of occurrence of force majeure event due to the act of war by Russia, causing the price of coal to rise sharply. Thereafter, several meetings were held, including between myself and colleague ministers with representatives of Terra-Gen Limited, with a view to reaching a solution. Several meetings were also held at the level of the Central Electricity Board. The request of Terra-Gen Limited was to revise the indexation formula under the power purchase agreement, while the Central Electricity Board had proposed a burden sharing formula between the two parties in a spirit of collaboration, given the long-standing commercial relations between the IPP and the Central Electricity Board. Mr. Speaker, sir, the House would recall that Terra-Gen Limited had ceased its operation on the 29th April 2022, while the hearing of the application for injunction lodged by the Central Electricity Board was ongoing at the level of the Supreme Court. The Central Electricity Board has reacted promptly, and since that date and until now, the Central Electricity Board has been successful in satisfying electricity demand to the population without disruption. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to Part A of the question, I am informed by the Central Electricity Board that since Terra-Gen Limited has disconnected from the grid up to 31st October 2022, the shortfall in energy generation attributed to Terra-Gen Limited amounts to 158.3 gigawatt hour. This contribution of Terra-Gen represents around 5.73% of the forecast energy demand for 2022. Mr. Speaker, sir, as regards Part B of the question, as I have already informed the House, since the ceasing of operations of Terra-Gen Limited, the Central Electricity Board has been successful in compensating the shortfall in energy that the independent power producer used to export to the grid. I had also informed the House in reply to PQB 649 at our sitting of 17th May 2022 of the demand-supply balance worked out by the Central Electricity Board to meet electricity demand in 2022 and after. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Central Electricity Board has prepared itself to face the demand for electricity in the coming months, especially with the recovery of economic activities, to ensure availability of adequate generation capacity and compensate the shortfall from Terra-Gen Limited, which represents around 5.73% of forecast energy generation for 2022. I will list a few main issues that have been taken by the Central Electricity Board, namely maintenance of Central Electricity Board power plants have been carried out in the winter months when demand is relatively low, while ensuring the health and state of all generating units. Allowance of operating, that is spinning reserve, is equivalent to the largest unit on the system. The battery energy storage system is used as spinning reserved. Internationally acceptable reserve capacity margins have been maintained, and better energy efficiency management through sensitization campaigns on energy conservation and saving. I wish here, Mr. Speaker, sir, to reassure the House that the Central Electricity Board has taken the necessary measures to ensure a stable and undisrupted supply of electricity to the population in the coming months. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Monsieur le Président, le ministre confirme que Terra-Gène représente 62 mégawatts en moins sur le réseau du CEB. Il faut bien préciser que l'affaire de Terra-Gène, c'est depuis octobre 2021 et non pas en 2022. Ajoutez à cela, Monsieur le ministre, est-ce que nous approchons malheureusement l'été à partir de décembre, donc la demande va augmenter. À part les 62 mégawatts que vous préconisez dans votre réponse en ce qui concerne Terra-Gène, il y a aussi, il faut bien s'ajouter, les 13 mégawatts de l'alternateur de Saint-Louis qui est en panne, qui vous fait 75 mégawatts en moins sur le réseau du CUB. Comment, avec ce que vous avez en spinning reserve, en réserve, comment vous pensez, Monsieur le ministre, le CEB va pouvoir cope avec la demande à partir de décembre jusqu'à l'année prochaine, alors que nous savons très bien qu'une nouvelle centrale prend 2 ans à 2 ans et demi pour être sur le réseau?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. First of all, let me again correct something, that is, the energy generated by Terra-Gène represents only 5.73% of the forecast energy demand for 2022. As I have stated in my reply, Mr. Speaker, sir, since Terra-Gène has stopped operation, the Central Electricity Board has been able to supply the country the electricity required. And measures have already been taken. I repeated it again in this answer. I said it again in a previous answer put to me by the same honorable member, that CB has taken all the necessary measures to be able to face the coming summer period, but also beyond that, that is for the year 2023 and onwards. There are a series of projects in the pipeline that are being implemented and will be commissioned by the year 2024. So we are very comfortable, Mr. Speaker, sir, in supplying electricity to the country, taking into consideration the growth for next year and year onwards. But at the same time, Mr. Speaker, sir, we have tried to discuss, and we are still discussing with Terra-Gène on the way forward with regard to their power plant operation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Monsieur le ministre, puisque Terragène, d'après vos réponses et votre raisonnement, n'est pas nécessaire sur le réseau du CEB, et nous parlons ici du charbon, est-ce qu'on peut savoir de vous que dans les mesures prises par le CEB, il consiste aussi à ce que le CEB a demandé aux IPPs d'augmenter leur production. Je dis bien d'augmenter leur production, les IPPs, pour compenser la perte de ce que Terragène allait emmener sur le réseau du CEB. Est-ce que cela forme partie des mesures prises par le CEB pour compenser Terragène? Donc les IPPs fournissant plus d'électricité, donc payant plus du CEB aux IPPs.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the CEB has increased their production. This in order to cope with the situation and also to produce electricity at a very competitive cost. This is the answer, Mr. Speaker, sir. It is the CEB that has increased production capacity.
Thank you. Will CB increasing its production entail mobilization of power stations like Nicolet, which uses jet fuel, and the unit cost of electricity there is way more expensive than the normal cost paid to IPP, normally 15 rupees, 16 rupees per kilowatt hour?
Mr. Speaker, sir, again, this was a question that was put to me some time back, whether we will need to have recourse to Nicolet Power Station. Yes, when we feel it is necessary. Let me give you an example. For the past 9 months, we have had recourse to the Nicolet gas turbine on 2 occasions only. But then, if you have a power plant, you need to run that power plant also. You cannot have a power plant and leave the power plant idle in the system. So when there is need to run the Nicolet gas turbine, we will run the Nicolet gas turbine together with other power plants of the Central Electricity Board.
Je voudrais revenir à ma question, la seconde question, Monsieur le Président, simplement pour avoir un éclaircissement du ministre. Ma question est claire, Monsieur le ministre. Est-ce que, c'est pas que je demande à ce que le CEB roule ses propres plantes pour compenser la perte de terrain. Ma question, elle est claire. Est-ce que le CEB a demandé aux autres IPP d'augmenter leur production pour mettre sur le réseau du CEB pour compenser la perte de terrain? Est-ce que le CEB a demandé et cela a été obtenu des IPPs, que les IPPs produisent plus d'électricité? C'est oui ou c'est non?
Mr. Speaker, sir, the production of electricity by IPPs is governed by the power purchase agreement that they have signed with the Central Electricity Board. Whatever production they will have to do will be within the ambit of the power purchase agreement.
The table has been advised that the following PQs have been withdrawn: 1134, 1145, 1135, 1142. Next question.
B1107, please.
By virtue of Section 8 of the National Pension Act 1976, a person is entitled to the invalid basic pension if he is below the age of 60 years and is found to be suffering from a disability of at least 60% for a period of at least 1 year following an assessment by the medical board. I'm informed that since January 2021 to 14th November 2022, 28,155 persons have been assessed by the medical board for invalid basic pensions. Out of 28,155, 16,424 persons have been found to be suffering from an incapacity of at least 60% and have been granted the invalid basic pension. 10,634 have not been found to be suffering from an incapacity of at least 60% and thus not eligible for the invalid basic pension. Out of the 10,634 persons who have not been found eligible for the invalid basic pension, 4,690 have appealed to the medical tribunal, out of which 1,132 appeals have been allowed and 2,383 have been set aside. In a spirit to help more persons suffering from certain specific disabilities, in the budget 2022-2023, a new measure was introduced where a person is under the age of 60 and is found to be suffering from a disability between 40 and 59%, he is entitled to a disability allowance of 2,500 monthly. The House may also wish to know that the Finance Act 2022, which was promulgated on 2nd August 2022, brought amendments to the Social Contributions and Social Benefits Act 2021. The eligibility criteria for the disability allowance is set out under Section 38 and the 6th Schedule of the Social Contribution and Social Benefits Act 2021. Part 1 of the 6th Schedule of the Social Contributions and Social Benefits Act 2021 provides for the list of medical conditions for which an applicant is entitled to a disability allowance on a permanent basis, and they are as follows: loss of arm at elbow, loss of arm between wrist and elbow, loss of hand at wrist, loss of four fingers and thumb of one hand, loss of leg between knee and hip, loss of leg between knee. Part 2 of the 6th Schedule provides for the list of medical conditions for which an applicant is entitled to a disability allowance for a renewable period of not less than 2 years, and they are as follows: paralysis of a whole limb with some movements, paraplegia, hemiplegia with some movements, grand mal epilepsy. I'm informed that from 3rd August 2022 to 9th November 2022, 9,319 applications for the invalid basic pensions have been assessed by the medical board. 2,819 applicants have been found eligible for the invalid basic pension, and 1,903 persons have not been found to be suffering from a disability of at least 60% by the medical board, hence not eligible for the pension. Out of the 1,903 cases, 30 applicants have been recommended for the disability allowance as they need the criteria set out in the 6th Schedule of the Social Contributions and Social Benefits Act 2022. So payments are currently being processed at the level of my ministry.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. L'honorable ministre va certainement être d'accord qu'il est très difficile de pouvoir faire la différence entre une personne tombant dans la catégorie 40 à 59% et une autre à partir de 60% d'incapacité. Donc, sans oublier que l'écart entre les deux catégories est quand même important, 3 500 et l'autre à 10 000. Donc, peut-on savoir comment finalement le Medical Board, est-ce que le ministre a une idée, comment le Medical Board arrive à s'en sortir pour pouvoir justement savoir où situer une personne qui invalide à 59% et une autre qui devrait bénéficier de la somme qui est allouée dans la catégorie des 60% à monter?
Well, Mr. Speaker, it is all about a question of incapacity. That's why we have the medical board and the medical tribunal. The medical board comprises of 2 general medical practitioners, and the medical tribunal consists of 2 specialist doctors in the relevant field and 1 chairperson from the state law office. So they are qualified persons, they are medical practitioners, so I'm not. So I stand guided by, this is the whole purpose of having the medical board and the medical tribunal, because on those two boards we have specialized persons to look into the incapacity of the applicants.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, can the Honourable Minister advise when were the medical guidelines last amended and whether it is in the process of being reviewed?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the medical guidelines was, as I speak of memory, the medical guidelines was reviewed, if I'm not mistaken, in 2016 by the Ministry of Health and Wellness in collaboration with my ministry. Well, here we are speaking of medical guidelines. We all agree that medical guidelines need to be reviewed on a regularly. That's why I have given instructions for the medical guidelines to be reviewed with the passing of time. So we are talking of 2016. And I can assure the House that the medical guidelines is being reviewed by the Ministry of Health and Wellness in collaboration with my ministry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, with regard to the disability allowance, can the Honourable Minister inform the House of whether the invalid person needs to go for an application? What are the procedures for the disability allowance? Thank you.
Yes, well, as the law stands, if a person thinks that he's suffering from an incapacity and he needs the basic invalidity pension or the disability allowance, of course, he will have to make an application to the Social Security Office nearest to his house.
Last supplementary.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. L'honorable ministre est probablement informé de certaines aberrations par rapport aux personnes qui ont vu leur pension d'invalidité être supprimée par le Medical Board, alors que ces mêmes personnes sont invalides soit depuis leur naissance ou bien suite à un grave accident. La ministre peut-elle nous dire justement comment faire pour mettre fin à ces décisions qui paraissent quand même pas tout à fait normales, dans le sens qu'une personne qui est handicapée, qu'on peut considérer à vie et qui subitement voit sa pension d'invalidité être supprimée, donc maintenant avoir recours à des interminables appels devant le Medical Board. L'honorable ministre ne pense-t-elle pas que c'est quand même pas tout à fait normal, même une aberration?
Well, Mr. Speaker, there is proper structures that has been set for the person to be examined, as I have said earlier. So we have the Medical Board, we have the Medical Tribunal. I stand guided by the assessment, by the findings of the Medical Board and the Medical Tribunal. I can't question their findings. So I think we need to trust the findings of the Medical Board and the Medical Tribunal. As I explained, on these two boards we have qualified medical practitioners. So furthermore, I can say that, well, there are avenues, there are several avenues in case they are dissatisfied with the decision of the Medical Board. That's why we have the appeal, so the applicant can appeal. The applicant has 30 days to appeal against the decision of the Medical Board. If the appeal is set aside, there is another avenue, so the applicant can make a fresh application after some 6 months. However, if the medical conditions of the person has deteriorated, then he can make a fresh application attaching the new medical certificate. And well, I do know that these applications are treated as most urgent, and the medical practitioners will do the needful.
Question B1111, B1114 have been withdrawn.
Motion.
Motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that all business on today's order paper be exempted from the provisions of paragraph 2 of Standing Order 10. Apologies for the delay.
The question is that all the business on today's order paper be exempted from the provisions of paragraph 2 of Standing Order 10. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it.
Statements by Minister.
I have a statement to make. I wish to inform the House that Mauritius has been invited by India in its capacity as G20 chair to participate as a guest country in all the G20 meetings from the 1st of December 2022 to 30th of November 2023. India's gesture, Mr. Speaker, sir, is a testimony of the special and privileged relations between our two countries and the close relations between the Honorable Pravin Kumar Jagannath and the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And we thank the Indian Prime Minister for this noble gesture. In preparation of our active participation on 10th of November 2022, I have chaired the first meeting with high-level senior officials from various ministries to brief them on the G20 process in preparation of our participation in the various meetings. Prime Minister Narendra Modi officially launched the Indian presidency of G20 under the theme Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, meaning one earth, one family, one future. Essentially, the theme affirms the value of all forms of life, human, animal, and plant, and their interconnection on the planet Earth and in the wider universe. The theme also spotlights lifestyle for environment, with its associated environmentally sustainable and responsible choices, both at the level of individual lifestyles as well as national development, leading to a cleaner, greener, and bluer future. In the context of our participation, the Government of India has requested the Government of Mauritius to nominate 1, a Sherpa, 2, a sous-Sherpa, and 3rd, a head of delegation and nodal officers for each of the thematic working groups. The government has decided to nominate Ambassador Dillam, the Secretary for Foreign Affairs, as the G20 Sherpa for Mauritius, and Mr. Acharaz, the Deputy Financial Secretary, as the sous-Sherpa. The Sherpa and the sous-Sherpa will coordinate the participation of Mauritius in the G20 process. Mauritius had the opportunity to participate in the first virtual briefing meeting for G20 Sherpas of guest countries, along with 7 others, namely Bangladesh, Egypt, the Netherlands, Nigeria, Oman, Singapore, and the UAE. The meeting was chaired by Ambassador Abhay Thakur, G20 sous-Sherpa for India, on the 2nd of November 2022, who the House would recall was the High Commissioner of India in Mauritius recently. The G20 processes are basically divided into a Sherpa track and a finance track. Under the Sherpa track, about 100 official meetings are organized in the areas of agriculture, anti-corruption, culture, development, digital economy, disaster risk reduction, education, employment, energy transitions, environment and climate sustainability, health, tourism, trade, and investment. Under the finance track, Mr. Speaker, sir, about 40 meetings are expected to be organized, including in the areas of international financial architecture, financial inclusion and sustainable finance, financing for infrastructure, climate finance, and tax matters. Under its presidency, India has also proposed an additional track known as engagement groups involving civil society and private sector. The modalities of their participation are still awaited. The challenge is immense, as we are talking about more than 150 meetings at technical levels, which will be hosted by India within a span of 1 year. This invitation is a first in our diplomatic history and provides us with a unique opportunity to further our national agenda and issues of vital interest for our country in the realm of global governance. Mr. Speaker, sir, through this innovative and powerful platform, our contribution on critical issues such as climate change, access to finance and technology, as well as the inherent vulnerabilities of small island states will be given due consideration, thus propelling Mauritius in the forefront of the global arena. Moreover, our participation in the G20 process is especially opportune at a time when Mauritius, like the rest of the world, is grappling with the enduring effects of the pandemic, the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and the global economic downturn. While the government has responded with social and budgetary measures, the resulting pressure on our public finances is unprecedented as we resolutely continue to chart our developmental agenda. As such, the G20 will provide Mauritius with a unique platform to make our voice heard in what is effectively a forum of the biggest and most important economies of the world. It will also serve to reinforce the leadership role that Mauritius has consistently played in pushing the small island states' agenda on the global arena. Our participation, sir, will also provide us an opportunity to diversify bilateral relationship with other G20 member states. Mr. Speaker, sir, the government will ensure that we make the most of this opportunity that Mauritius has to be at the main table in one of the most important strategic multilateral platforms that connects the world's major developed and emerging economies. It goes without saying that this is a matter of pride for Mauritius to participate in the G20 process, and therefore I rely on the collaboration of one and all to support this endeavor. I have done. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Public Bill, first reading.
First reading, Public Bill, Honorable Kalichon. So,
Mr. Speaker, sir. I will move on behalf of government for the first reading of the Occupational Safety and Health Amendment Bill, number 17 of 2022.
Seconded.
Public Bill, second reading.
Resumption of debate, Honorable Devin.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you for giving me the floor to lend my voice and my vote in favor of the Dangerous Drugs Amendment Bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, I propose to be quite brief in my address this afternoon. I wish to highlight certain provisions of the bill which I believe constitute major changes at the level of policy in the fight against drug trafficking. And the second part of my address, I will address some point raised by the other side of the House. First, I wish to highlight three provisions of the bill which constitute major changes. First of all, the powers of a police officer under what will become Section 57, capital A of the Dangerous Drugs Act once this amendment bill is passed. Under the new Section 57, capital A, power is given to police officers to have the power for the lawful use by a police officer of dangerous drugs for the purpose of detecting an offense. This power had always been in the law. For example, we know that a police officer could have in his possession
a certain amount of dangerous drugs when he is in the performance of his functions for the purpose of detecting an offense of, for example, offering to buy. That is where then he arrests the suspect and takes him to court for an offense under the Dangerous Drug Act. That has always been the case. What is being changed now is at the level of supervision of the exercise of that power by a police officer. In fact, in argument in the previous sittings, some members on the other side of the House were saying that this is an unchecked power that is being given to a police officer. I beg to disagree. It was perhaps unchecked before. Now, a supervision, a control is being put on the exercise of such a power. And I will say why. Henceforth, a police officer will be able, in the discharge of his functions, for the detection of an offense under the Dangerous Drugs Act, will be able to transport, dispatch, possess, purchase, or offer to purchase any dangerous drug. That, we have no quarrel with that. It has always been in our law. What is being changed now, it will be a police officer in the exercise of such a power has to be authorized in writing. That's number one. He will need an authority in writing. Secondly, that authority should come from a police officer not below the rank of superintendent of police. Therefore, the control comes by this authority given in writing, so that at any point later, whether during inquiry or during a trial, if questions are put as to whether this officer was authorized, the writing will be there. So this is a measure of control and supervision on the lawful use for the purpose of detection of offenses under the new section 57, capital A of the Dangerous Drugs Act once the amendment bill is passed. That was the point I wanted to highlight. Secondly, a second point I want to raise is a new offense is being created in this amendment bill, and that is, if I may call it, in between inverted commas, a special conspiracy. We all know that the offense of conspiracy, as it has always existed in our law, lies in the Criminal Code Supplementary Act. That is section 109 of the Criminal Code Supplementary Act. What is being enacted in this amendment bill will be a new section in the Dangerous Drugs Act, and that new section will be section 39, capital A, with a short title, Conspiracy to Commit Drug Offense. Now, why is the Assembly called upon to vote on such a provision? It's because a conspiracy to commit an offense under the Dangerous Drugs Act should be severely punished, in the sense that it should be harsher punishment for a conspiracy under the Dangerous Drugs Act as compared to a conspiracy under the Criminal Code. This is what we are achieving with the creation of this new offense of conspiracy under the Dangerous Drugs Act. And as we all know, the offenses, the penalties provided for the offenses under the Dangerous Drugs Act are way higher than those we find in other legislations. That's for my second point. My third point, and that concerns a major shift in policy. It concerns the destruction of exhibits. So far, whenever an exhibit is seized, that exhibit is, of course, sent for analysis, to the FSL, and then until trial, which can happen sometimes, not often fortunately, but sometimes, some years later, those exhibits have to be kept in custody, and with the passage of time, sometimes the weight can alter, the composition can be altered just because with the passage of time, because these are chemical compounds. So when we look at what obtains in other jurisdictions, the major shift is instead of a policy of storage of exhibit, the change is to document and destroy. It is not a simple destruction. It is to document it first and then to destroy it. And I will explain what is the meaning of to document and destroy. First, let us look at other jurisdictions. I have gone to check in India, disposal of seized narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances. In the jurisdiction of India, government agencies are authorized to destroy. However, it should be on an application made before a magistrate, and the magistrate allows, or not, depending on the application, the destruction. The same obtains in Madagascar. When we look at on the section of remise et destruction des substances saisies, the same policy is to document the seizure, the amount, the quantity, and then destroy it. In Australia, it is the same policy. Philippines, same policy. And like that, so many other jurisdictions. So what are we doing, therefore, here in adopting this new policy of document and destroy? That would be found, once the bill is passed, in a new section of the Dangerous Drugs Act, namely Section 58, capital A. Destruction of dangerous drugs. What will happen with the new regime of document and destruction? Exhibits, of course, will be in the custody of the police. The police officer in charge of the investigation will be given a direction in writing once again. He will be directed in writing by a police officer not below the rank of superintendent of police. What will that direction in writing contain? That direction, the superintendent will give a direction in writing to the police officer in charge of the investigation, directing him to do what? He will be directed to make an application before the district court. Which district court? The district court where the accused is charged. I hasten to add, it will be the district court where the accused is provisionally charged. Because we are not yet at the stage of trial. We are still at investigation stage. So the accused will be provisionally charged before a district court, as is invariably the case. That police officer in charge of the investigation will make the application before the district court where the accused is provisionally charged to ask for what? To ask the magistrate for an order for the destruction of the dangerous drugs. So therefore the destruction comes under the scrutiny and supervision of a judicial officer, namely the magistrate. And that application before the district court will therefore become the record of where the drugs have been seized, the quantity, the weight, and everything else. It will be made in a prescribed form. Thereafter will come the order for destruction. Therefore, at the stage of trial, the record will still be there for production at trial stage, but there will be no need to keep that exhibit for months and sometimes years. This is a major change in policy, and I am all for it, Mr. Speaker. Sir, these were the three provisions I wanted to highlight. Before ending, I wish to comment on some arguments that were put forward by members of the other side. Much was said about the existing power in the law as it is now of the magistrate to order rehabilitation. I have heard that they were saying there was nothing new. We are going to order rehabilitation. The magistrate nowadays already has this power to order rehab. I humbly beg to differ. As the law stands, the power of the magistrate to order rehab comes after conviction. That is, at the stage of sentencing. Whereas what we are introducing in the law is not even, there will not be even be a trial. Before the drug user is sent for trial, there will be a recommendation, depending on the case, to send him before the drug user's administrative panel, where he goes to the drug user administrative panel and he accepts the terms and conditions of his rehab. He is not even going to court. So it is not even, we are not talking, there are two separate regimes here. Actually, it is a criminal justice system, whereas the drug users administrative panel is outside the criminal justice system. We are diverting him away from the criminal justice system. This is exactly what Commissioner Lam Shanglin recommended, is to divert the drug user away from the criminal justice system. Otherwise, he gets entangled in the criminal justice system, and life changes dramatically once you are in a criminal justice system. So therefore, this is what we have to understand clearly. Another argument that was put forward by members, some members of the other side, is that there was, with this Drugs Amendment Bill, there was therefore a need to also amend the Certificate of Character Act. No, there is no need, because the question does not even arise. A person being diverted from the criminal justice system and to the drug users administrative panel will not even be convicted. He's not going to court. So the question of the certificate of character does not arise. We should be clear about that. One final point. Unfortunately, my learned friend at the bar, Honorable Utim, is not in the house. I heard him say the last time, it was last Thursday, that he was the proud member of the MMM who has never defended a drug trafficker. Granted, he has not defended a drug trafficker in court. In court, he has not defended. Granted, because I know offshore business is keeping him very busy. But who objected? Who objected? Who was so vociferous when Mr. Yuricek was removed from this jurisdiction? Who? He will go down history as the only barrister in the MMM who objected to the removal of Mr. Yuricek. That is on record in this house and outside this house. I wanted, and I know people outside have understood that very clearly. If you want to play semantics, I have not defended before this forum, or I have not defended before that forum. The people have understood very clearly who objected to the removal of Mr. Yuricek, who is now behind bars and facing justice in his country. I have done, Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you very much.
Dano.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, permettez-moi de contribuer au débat sur ce projet de loi, le Dangerous Drugs Amendment Bill, qui est devant la Chambre. Monsieur le Président, je suivis le dossier de la lutte contre la toxicomanie de très près depuis plusieurs décennies dans cette Chambre. À plusieurs reprises, j'ai participé au débat apporté au Didier dans le passé et j'avais interpellé à plusieurs reprises des ministres responsables du dossier concernant la drogue sur plusieurs aspects spécifiques alors que j'étais dans l'opposition. Monsieur le Président, le combat pour l'élimination de la drogue à travers le monde a été toujours un rude et difficile exercice, malgré les conventions internationales de 1961 qui fut amendée par le protocole de 1972, la convention de 1971 et finalement la convention de 1988, celle qui est la plus rapprochée de nous, le United Nations Convention Against Illicit Traffic in Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances. En effet, Monsieur le Président, les autorités onusiennes et les États membres de par le monde ont toujours eu du fil à retordre et à faire face à d'innombrables défis, eu égard la résilience, la résistance et l'ingéniosité de la mafia et des barons de la drogue. C'est ainsi que nous notons que l'accent et l'emphase ont été constamment mis sur la répression, en particulier par le biais des interventions législatives sévères. Des nouvelles lois furent régulièrement formulées, des nouvelles sanctions furent imposées, des propositions législatives prêtant à saisir les biens des trafiquants furent introduites. Des pays, dépendant de leur spécificité, régulièrement ajustèrent leur législation domestique à des nouvelles situations qu'ils n'avaient jamais contemplées face à ces barons de la drogue. À Maurice même, Monsieur le Président, je me souviens, dans les années 90, quand j'étais ministre de la Justice au sein du gouvernement dirigé par Feu Sage, nous avions durci nos lois davantage face à une recrudescence inquiétante de la drogue. Par exemple, nous avions légiféré pour même refuser le droit à la liberté provisoire aux usagers ayant été condamnés dans le passé pour un délit de possession de drogue. La loi fut amendée pour sanctionner les prévenus en cas où ils changeaient leur déposition à la police. Certains privilèges furent refusés aux prévenus condamnés pour une affaire de drogue. Et plus tard, vous vous souvenez, la Constitution fut également amendée pour introduire le concept de détention incommunicado. Mais malgré tout cet arsenal de mesures répressives déployées, les autorités internationales et locales, hélas, Monsieur le Président, durent se rendre compte que la bataille était loin d'être gagnée. Très souvent, on entendit parler dans les hautes sphères, au niveau des organisations onusiennes, d'un lost battle. C'est ainsi qu'au fil des décennies, les autorités se rendirent compte que la répression seule ne suffisait pas. La répression, hélas, n'était pas la seule solution. En parcourant la Convention de Vienne en 1988, on réalise que des mesures alternatives ayant trait au traitement, à l'éducation, à l'aftercare, la réhabilitation ou la réintégration sociale, quoique mentionnées, n'étaient pas vraiment valorisées. Et en vérité, elles ne sont que mentionnées sous la rubrique de « Offenses and Sanctions ». Je lis the relevant clause. The parties may provide either as an alternative to conviction or punishment or in addition to conviction or punishment of an offense, establish in accordance with paragraph 2 of this article measures for the treatment, education, aftercare, rehabilitation or social integration of the offender. Fin de citation. Monsieur le Président, il coule de source que la législation mauricienne s'alignait donc sur ce principe. Des recours au traitement et à la réhabilitation de l'usager ne furent que très timides. Il n'était point l'époque où l'utilisation de la drogue était considérée comme un public health issue, ou encore moins un human rights issue. Ce n'est qu'en 2003, sous le gouvernement MSM-MMM, qu'un amendement élaboré au Didier de l'année 2000 fut adopté pour permettre aux cours de justice de donner une chance à l'accusé en lui offrant la possibilité de se faire traiter ou réhabiliter au lieu d'aller servir une peine d'emprisonnement. Et la section pertinente disait that the court, where it considers this to be appropriate, shall explain to the convicted person that if he undertakes to cooperate in order to be cured of his addiction, the court, instead of sentencing him to imprisonment, may order him to undergo at such institution as may be prescribed, etc., etc., treatment, care after care. Donc, Monsieur le Président, malgré ces amendements positifs, l'option de la répression perdurera. Les tentatives des autorités publiques de privilégier et de mettre sur le même pied d'égalité l'alternative de traitement et de réhabilitation ne connurent malheureusement pas de grand succès. Pour preuve, Monsieur le Président, plusieurs institutions, malheureusement, ne fonctionnaient pas. Le Treatment and Rehabilitation of Drug Addicts Trust Fund de 1988, projet de loi qui fut voté, malheureusement, n'apporta pas les résultats escomptés. Il fut abrogé et remplacé par un autre projet de loi, le NATRESA Act, le National Agency for the Treatment and Rehabilitation of Substance Abuse Act de 1994. Et ce projet de loi qui abrogea le précédent projet de loi Treatment and Rehabilitation of Drug Addicts de 86, hélas, connut le même sort. En effet, le NATRESA, dont l'objectif principal était de réhabiliter, de traiter, fut aussi abrégé et périt alors que le fléau de la drogue continuait à faire des ravages au sein de la population et de la jeunesse. Les autorités publiques ne péchaient pas par manque de volonté, Monsieur le Président. Mais le fait demeure que la machine ne connut jamais sa vitesse de croisière. Et quelquefois, même le lower judiciary, notre magistrature fut rappelée de temps en temps par la Cour suprême de l'impérieuse nécessité de suivre l'esprit de la loi et de donner à l'option de traitement et de réhabilitation sa juste valeur. Plusieurs jugements de la Cour suprême en sont témoins, Monsieur le Président. Et finalement, dans ce combat contre la toximanie, ce que j'appellerais la dernière étape, Monsieur le Président, dans cette longue et sinueuse route, fut quelques années de cela la demande pour la décriminalisation, la dépénalisation ou la légalisation. Ces trois terminologies, ces trois vocables qui en vérité créent beaucoup de confusion. Ce n'est pas moi qui le dis, c'est le président Lam San Ling lui-même dans son rapport. Il fait mention de la confusion que prêtent ces trois vocables, ces trois terminologies. Mais qu'importe, nous comprenons tous les sens de leur contenu. Et dans les années 2015, 2016 et jusqu'aux élections générales de 2019, les revendications pour cette option se firent de plus en plus entendre. Et plusieurs justifications pour cette politique étaient offertes, Monsieur le Président, par des jeunes, par des ONG, par des professionnels de la santé, par des travailleurs sociaux. À cette époque, j'étais, moi, un dirigeant du mouvement patriotique. Et avec certains collaborateurs, nous avions prêté une oreille attentive à ces propositions, à ce plan d'action, à cette nouvelle formule. Et nous avons essayé de comprendre et d'appréhender ces nouvelles propositions. Je me souviens un premier forum fut organisé et sur le thème « Le cannabis, un nouveau regard ». Des jeunes, des moins jeunes, des travailleurs sociaux, des professionnels de santé marquèrent leur présence et leur intérêt sur le sujet. Nous avons même invité, je me souviens très bien, d'un addictologue très connu de la Réunionnais, français, le docteur Mété, de l'île de la Réunion, par le biais d'un autre expert dans la matière, le docteur Paratian, qui animait plusieurs ateliers de travail. À ce moment, malheureusement, les politiciens de l'autre côté de la Chambre, Monsieur le Président, ne démontraient aucune indication de leur engagement dans cette première étape toute cruciale de ce nouveau processus. Je dis tout ceci, Monsieur le Président, pour faire comprendre qu'il y a en effet un lien étroit entre la réhabilitation, le traitement, le aftercare et la nécessité de la voie de la dépénalisation ou la décriminalisation, by whatever name we might call the process. Mais pour revenir à ce projet de loi lui-même, Monsieur le Président, je dois vous dire, je suis très honoré et fier d'appartenir à un gouvernement qui a pu porter devant cette Chambre aujourd'hui ce projet de loi avec ses contenus. It is indeed, Monsieur le Président, a great leap forward, a major step forward. And I applaud this piece of legislation, Mr. Speaker, sir, because it is the first time, indeed, that the DDA, amended as it will be, has created a corridor for removing people, especially young people, out of the criminal justice system, and is treating the use of drugs as a public health issue rather than a legal issue. Therefore, by so doing, this practice can provide health measures for people genuinely suffering from addiction and will also facilitate their social integration, providing them with long-term treatment. And I have listened to a few members of the opposition, Mr. Speaker, sir, who have been critical regarding the DUAP, this panel, or with regard to the process leading to the suspension of prosecution provided for in section 59B. But the truth of the matter, Mr. Speaker, is that this bill has come with this novel proposal that drug dependence should not be treated as a criminal matter, and that detention and repression are not the only appropriate responses to drug use. To many of us, Mr. Speaker, sir, to me, for what I know, I could have hardly dreamt that such an avant-gardist legislation proposals would have found their way in our statute books, at least during our lifetime. I say that, Mr. Speaker, sir, because if we are honest, we are all aware of the conservative nature of our societal norms and their inherent blockage, prejudices, and biases. One may not be in full agreement with the approach adopted in this bill, arguing, as some members of the opposition have done, that the bill has not gone too far, or that the bill contains such and such laws. But let us acknowledge, Mr. Speaker, sir, it needed a lot of political courage and audacity to propose to the nation the provisions that have been provided for in this bill, Mr. Speaker, sir. And this is why I would like to repeat what my friend, my colleague, Honorable Gobin just said, the point he just made, that what we have provided for in this piece of legislation is that the path of treatment and rehabilitation is readily available at the outset of the judicial process. That is immediately after the arrest of this young offender or of this drug user. At the very outset, the user, therefore, is driven away, theoretically, or in practice, if he submits to the conditions of the law. He is driven away from the legal route on certain conditions, which the model in our law proposes. Never before has this been the case, Mr. Speaker, sir. In our current legislation, as explained by my colleague, the AG, the drug user was treated as an offender with no opportunity at the outset of being provided with treatment and shielded from punitive sanctions, Mr. Speaker, sir. And therefore, I repeat, I applaud this piece of legislation because it is the first time we have created a corridor for removing people out of the criminal justice system. Mr. Speaker, sir. Rappelons-nous, Monsieur le Président, que donc l'option de traitement ou de réhabilitation est proposée à l'accusé pas après sa condamnation, pas après son arrestation, pas après avoir obtenu sa libération provisoire ou conditionnelle, ou pas après avoir été refusé sa demande de liberté provisoire, donc après son passage au remand, pas après son procès, pas du tout, Monsieur le Président. C'est ça le point fondamental de ce projet de loi, d'après moi. This is the novelty of this piece of legislation, and it is the first time, I repeat, in our history, that the law is providing this unique opportunity from drug users to be spared from punitive sanctions and to allow them to seek treatment without any fear of legal sanctions at the time of their arrest, Monsieur le Président. There is a second point that I wish to make, Mr. Speaker, sir, that another element which I find positive also, many members during their speeches have made reference to the havoc caused by synthetic drugs among our youth. Indeed, we still hear of unfortunate cases of some of our youngsters being killed due to overdose. Some have to be referred to the BSH or other health institution, causing a lot of sorrow and despair to their families and beloved ones. Mr. Speaker, sir, when very often in Mauritius, when people talk of depenalisation, they talk of dépénaliser le cannabis. But in this bill before the House, it should not escape our attention that once arrested, the young drug user, or anybody else for that matter, whether addicted to cannabis or whether arrested with any type of drugs, including synthetics, may be hooked out of this traumatic world in which he has been living, may be removed from this spiral, from this nightmare in which he is going through, Mr. Speaker, sir, although he has been caught in possession of cannabis or any other synthetic drug. Therefore, the bill goes further than providing only to cannabis users the possibility of being treated and rehabilitated as patients requiring care and treatment. Finally, Mr. Speaker, sir, what I would like to say is that with regard to the use of medical cannabis, I congratulate the Prime Minister once again and the Minister of Health for having made a dream come true to many Mauritians. The same political audacity which I referred to earlier with regard to the other clauses of this bill has been demonstrated anew with regard to the availability now of medical cannabis. And the reason why things are happening now is the time that government has taken to introduce this bill is clear, Mr. Speaker, sir. I think somebody on the other side of the House asked the question, why now? Why now? Because it was in December 2020 that government set up this technical committee on cannabis for the implementation of the recommendations of the Commission of Inquiry on Drug Trafficking, relating particularly to the use of cannabis for medicinal purposes. It was on 26 November 2021, et n'oublions pas, 2020, 2021, c'était les années du Covid-19, Monsieur le Président, où presque tout était en panne. Et en novembre 2021, donc, government was apprised of the recommendations of the technical committee, and subsequently, under the chairmanship of the Prime Minister, government set up this steering committee to look into the implementation of the recommendations of the technical committee on medicinal cannabis. And the steering committee came up with its recommendations, which are incorporated in the present bill. And I have to underline also, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is to the credit of the government, of the Prime Minister, of the Minister of Health, that during the sittings of this technical committee, views and comments were sought from the public on the medicinal use of cannabis through notices which were published in dailies. Numerous comments were received and considered by the technical committee before finalizing its recommendation. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, government should be commended for the transparent, from the democratic and the open manner in which it conducted this unprecedented and this complex exercise. And another factor which also explains the time frame in coming up with the present legislation, Mr. Speaker, sir, is the time taken by the WHO for recommending the use of cannabis for medical purposes. And Mr. Utim, Honorable Utim himself, he acknowledges, and he says this in his speech, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is only after the decision of the United Nations Commission on Narcotic Drugs in December 2020 that finally government set up a technical committee. To conclude, Monsieur le Président, je voudrais dire ceci, c'est un grand pas en avant aujourd'hui que notre pays franchit avec ce projet de loi. Mais aucun projet de loi n'est figé, Monsieur le Président. C'est à nous, législateurs, de suivre son parcours et de lui donner dans l'avenir le dynamisme nécessaire. Dans le domaine de la formulation des outils pour combattre la toxicomanie, Monsieur le Président, incluant la décriminalisation ou la dépénalisation, il n'est pas question de copy and paste. S'imposer un blueprint comporte des risques énormes. La loi doit être modulée proprement, dépendant de la spécificité du pays, de son système judiciaire, de ses expériences passées dans le domaine précis. L'essentiel aujourd'hui, Monsieur le Président, est que par le biais de ce projet de loi, nous avons mis les pieds dans l'étrier. Laissons le temps au temps. Our duty is to allow and to facilitate the smooth running of the DUAP. And I wish well this amendment bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, in the interest of the numerous citizens of our country, especially our youngsters who are still entrapped in the mire of drug abuse. I have done. Thank you for your attention.
I'll suspend the sitting for half an hour.